So the best way to think of polymorphism is basically a specific method having many different types of functions. So for example, if a method from the class animal, so let's put class animal, and let's say this class right over here has the method of eat, and when this method is called, it would print out these values. Now let's say that we have a subclass for animal that kind of extends this animal class. So let's say this would be something like dog. So since dog extends animal, it automatically has this method of eat, and this is called inheritance. Now, polymorphism is where you can actually modify this method. So let's say animals generally make the sound when eating, but the dog makes a slightly different sound. So I don't know, let's say it's this, for example. So when you're calling the eat method for the dog, instead of running this right over here, it would rather run this. So you would still need to declare the eat method, but instead of implementing this, you would just do this. And if you have another subclass like cat, and let's say it eats differently, then you would just specify whatever it is, whatever string value you want for that. And then this would run whenever you call the eat method for cat rather than this. And if neither of these methods are declared, so for cat and dog, if you don't have these methods declared in a different version to put, then whenever you call the eat method in dog or cat, you would always have this method run and this being printed. Okay, so if you look right here, I have made a class which I've talked about in the visual representation of polymorphism, so the animal class, and I've also made a dog class and I've given it some instance variables, just keeping in mind object-oriented programming. Now here we're going to make a method. Let's just call it public void, and let's just say eat, and let's put in some random values. This would just be a string, and this is considered the noise a typical animal would make while eating. So this is from a previous video I've made. Let me just take this out, and let's say we want to print out, or not even print out, let's say we make a instance of the dog class specifically. And let's say we call dog.eat. So now this is kind of, okay, so my mistake. We would here have to extend animal because we do need to keep in mind inheritance. Again, I'm going to be making a video on inheritance in the future, but it's basically where you just kind of inherit or take in all the methods and instance variables of the class that you're extending. So in this case, I have the dog has access to all the methods and instance variables of the animal class. So when you do something like d.eat, d is an instance of the dog class, and since dog extends animal, we do have access to the eat method. And So when we run it, we're going to see this, which is what I said the general animal makes when they're eating. Well, let's say we want to say the dog makes a different sound while eating. Then we can add another form to the eat method, and instead of saying this, I can say that the dog makes this sound while eating. Okay, so now when we do d.eat, we're going to see this. However, if we add a parameter to this, something like int x, then it's not going to be able to use this because we're not giving in a parameter. So if we run this again, we're going to go back to the original. And we could also make another class instead of dog. We could make cat, like I've said before, and the cat would also be able to use a completely different sound. And I'll just show you an example of that. So here we just made the cat class. Let's extend animal. And let's essentially use this, but give it a different sound. Oops. So let's say this is how the cat eats. So when we do something like, okay, let me just make this now. So this here would print out what we have here. Let's take out the parameter. And this would print out what we have here. And also let's take out this parameter. Okay. And if we run it, yes, we get these two values right over here. So the main point I'm trying to prove, and this is simply an explanation, and I'll go into more depth and more examples later, but the general idea of polymorphism is you can take the a method, for example, of a class like animal and morph it into many forms. So hence the name suggests polymorphism, because we're just taking this method, but we're changing the form to this in the dog class, and we're changing the form to this in the cat class. So I'll end the video with this, and I'll go into more detailed examples in future videos, and I'll also make a video on explaining inheritance. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.